I have three foci there, and I'm only going to list them in case you want to talk about them here or later, and I'm going to talk about something slightly different. So one focus is, right. One focus is to bring together the data that comes in from learners from Stanford courses on Coursera, NovoEd, and Lagunita into one place where learning scientists, social scientists can use it easily with existing tools. Second focus is to make that data shareable. So I've worked a lot with our general counsel, with IRB. We've now executed 30 shares with institutions outside of Stanford. I'm very proud of that. And already papers outside of Stanford are coming out that are based on our data. And then third focus is building an infrastructure that's just computer engineering, is building an infrastructure that lets us build educational modules, tools, outside of edX, but in concert with it, complementing it, without having to drill it open. Okay, but what I want to take this time for is to think about and express my hopes of what MOOCs we as a community will do along this curve. Many of you must have seen it before. It's a very well-known curve. Time goes left to right, and it's how technology evolves over time. And so there's a technological innovation, a lot of hype, a lot of press, a lot of hope, until you hit this this peak. At which point then people invariably understand the actual complexities, the limitations, and so on. And so there is this trough of disillusionment, after which then there's a slow ascent with more realistic expectations and insights, and then sort of a mildly linear progression. So that is a sort of a general curve. So how about us? Okay, so the little red thing is a sort of a generic university seal. I use both red and blue to catch as many as possible. So up to the peak, we've all been sort of really excited about projecting teaching outwards to the world. Okay, that's been really the excitement about MOOCs, and as it. And as we, the public, the press, starts getting a little, worried, we are beginning to ask questions. And they are reasonable questions. Some people are discouraged by the notoriously low completion rates, which are very complicated to evaluate. Maybe, and I don't know whether that's true, the first professors, the first 10 got all the fame, the press articles have been written, they've been interviewed, now there's really no fame to be had, so maybe it's not as attractive. I'm not telling you that you're doing this, but, it could be. And then, on the other hand, going back and focusing on your local students, well, it's kind of nice. It's smaller classes. You remember that. That's actually much, less work. And there is much more homogeneity because of the admissions process. Makes things easier as well. And then some might be worried about fiduciary responsibility as well. Our students are paying us, so we should really focus on them and never mind this outside stuff. And also, there's really no money to be made there. I mean, I'm just saying, these are the worries. So what I worry about is that maybe we're going to progress saying, kind of retreating and say, well, yes, online is fine, but let's just focus on our own students. And I think that would be really sad. It would be short-sighted for really a number of reasons. One is that the student loan crisis is in the press every single day. So we really are, as higher education, kind of in the spotlight. And so anything we can do to show that we are actually responsible citizens is a good thing. So the curve on the right there, these curves, is just to show that higher ed costs have gone up have outpaced inflation. That's all that curve says. Lifelong learning, it used to be kind of a romantic thing. Oh, grandpa can learn square dancing in nursing home, and that's great, it keeps him alive. But that's really changed, because the economy is such that you really have to change your tooling sometimes multiple times during a lifetime to survive, to pay your mortgage, and then later your rent, and then later to stay in the area where you live, okay? Or maintain your car to live in it. So it really has become very, very important that this is available. And then for our own sake, we learn from extremes. The moon landing was an extreme. Huge amounts of data is very different from an N of 100. Okay? So we learn from big stuff that really challenges us, and that's what MOOCs are. And then if you're into statistics at all, don't waste a large N if you can get it. It's really fun to see these margins. It's just great. So my hope going forward is that for one, we can show some responsibility by giving back to the rest of the academic community. I'm thinking of, for instance, community colleges that are struggling. It's complicated because we don't want to degrade the jobs there. Okay, so I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do, but I think it's something to keep in mind that we can do outward looking as opposed to just inward looking. And then the analytics, that's what we're talking about, really can, because of their scale, and only because of their scale, help us feed back to, yes, benefit our own students. Okay? And here's what we've done so far. You all know that. It was the easiest first step, lectures to videos, homework to multiple choice, and then readings to web pages. A lot more has happened, but more should and can happen. We've talked about simulations. These are all taken off the web. They all exist. Many are a little old. They're, applets. Still they're there. I don't know how many of them are collaborative. Can you have lab partners where you can discuss the lab as you're doing it? I don't know how many of the simulations do that. Language studies, you could imagine, French learners, English learners being hooked up, even though they're in different courses. And then the gamification. It came up a few times, and I despise games. I do not engage in games, and haven't since I realized I hate losing, which was very early. But I'm really astounded what you can make people do if you make them feel they're in a game. It's just like, it boggles the mind. So, it needs to be explored. We can include, because of the large numbers, learners can contribute. They can say, well, this article out there, this simulation out there is great, and future students of a course can benefit from that. And so here is where I'm going to explain where my question to Ken came from, actually, about the types of models that we might want to have. So a lot of the courses I'm finding, just anecdotally, begin with an instructor and some teaching assistants, and then the second run is done that way again, and then the instructor kind of walks off. Maybe that's more the case in research, in research universities, where people then lose interest a little bit. A lot of courses seem to be turning self-paced, okay? Untended. So now that is a great opportunity for learning, for us to learn how to do something novel, because as these courses run, the data on that specific course increases constantly. So you have very comparable data over time, right? And so at that point, when you're self-paced, you are either like a recommender system, or like a self-driving car. It's not that far away, and we can argue about that, right? But so the models might not be human readable, might not be explainable, And Ken answered that, well, we want them explainable because then we want to tweak in response. Well, once you're totally self-paced, untended, that's done, right? It's the car has been built. Now it needs to be self-driving, and maybe now different types of models are going to be of interest, and those will require the big data. Not big data, but kind of. Okay, that's it. My prediction is that LMSs will be more like recommender systems than they used to be. And maybe I'm now going to add more like self-driving cars, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.